Thank you. Welcome to our public hearing for the FY26 budget. I'm Andrew Perchlik, the chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee. With me is Representative Shai, the chair of the House Appropriations Committee, and the members of both the House and the Senate Appropriations Committees. This is the second of our two public hearings that we hold every year on the budget. They're giving the chance of the public to tell the committees on appropriations how they think the state money should be spent. For this hearing, each person will have 2 minutes to speak. We have Scott over there doing the timer, and Jim Harrison, Representative Harrison here, will raise his hand to let you know when you have reached 10 seconds, when you only have 10 seconds left. Representative Shai will call the names of who is up immediately and then who's going to be on deck. Those that are on deck should be prepared to come up here to speak if you're in person. If you're testifying Zoom, you will automatically be muted. When it is your turn, you will be promoted, which you will see on your screen. So please accept the promotion, unmute yourself, and be sure your video is on so we don't have any technical delays. If this is your first public hearing, please note that our job as legislators is simply to listen to your testimony, or won't be asking any questions during this hearing. Finally, if your time is up and you have more you'd like us to know, please feel free to submit written testimony. The email link within the email that you were sent, and you can send your testimony directly to that testimony 2025 email address. The committees will be reading all the written testimony that is. So thank you for participating, and with that, Representative Shai will read the first.
So the first two are on Zoom, and first is Elisa Boisel from Atria Collective, and then Christy Everett is on deck.
Excuse me. We have Alyssa.
Hi, this is Alyssa. I'm here, but I cannot start my video. It says the host is stopped.
Oh, we can hear you loud and clear. So if you just want to give your testimony that way, that's fine.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So good evening. My name is Alyssa Boisel, the Executive Director at Atria Collective, a nonprofit based in Middlebury, Vermont. For the past 45 years, Atria Collective has been a crucial resource for survivors of domestic and sexual violence in Addison County. I am here to speak in support of a $1.2 million investment in Vermont's Domestic and Sexual Violence Special Fund to preserve the essential services of Vermont's domestic and sexual violence organizations. At Atria Collective, we are committed to providing continuous services to survivors, including a 24-hour crisis hotline, emergency and transitional housing programs, legal advocacy, medical accompaniment, and sexual assault response, a supervised visitation program, support groups, and prevention education. In the last fiscal year, our dedicated advocates provided 8,937 direct services to 599 adults and children through our advocacy services. Our supervised visitation program facilitated 311 visits and safe exchanges for 21 families and provided support to the parents and caregivers of 281 children. Our team is steadfast in its commitment to our mission, fueled by our conviction in the importance of the work and the survivors we support, yet each year brings the unfortunate challenge of achieving more with fewer resources. Our data demonstrates that the urgency is clear and our future funding remains uncertain. The stark reality is that any reduction in funding will result in a decline in services. It is imperative that we increase our investment in these services now, and if we do not, we must confront the pressing question: what will happen to the most vulnerable members of our community? With reduced funding, how will we prioritize critical services to maintain and which ones to cease? Must we sacrifice our crisis services? So in closing, I'm asking you to please consider a $1.2 million investment in Vermont's Domestic and Sexual Violence Fund to preserve these essential services. Thank you for providing me the opportunity to speak with you today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Christy Everett on Zoom, followed by Alicia Post, who should be in the room.
Hi, my audio is working, but apparently I'm having the same issue with video. So I will just start talking if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Hello, my name is Christy Everett, and I'm the Director of Operations at the Clara Martin Center, which is the designated agency for Orange County and the Greater Upper Valley. I appreciate the opportunity to testify today and to advocate for continued investments in the designated and specialized service agencies like the Clara Martin Center, with a specific ask for 6.2% Medicaid rate increase based on analysis conducted by our CFO group. This rate increase translates into $13,950,000 in general fund dollars. With the increasing needs of our local communities, this rate increase is essential to meet community needs and support critical services that Vermonters depend on. I appreciate the support the legislator has shown to our system of care over the years and your commitment to supporting rate increases to make our services more sustainable. Your support reflects the values we hold around dignity and respect for individuals who may struggle with mental health or substance use concerns, and that care for those needs are just as important as care for physical health needs. A 6.2% rate increase is crucial to meet the rising costs of the services we provide. With our funding primarily provided by Medicaid and other grants, we need to rely on rate increases to meet the increased operational costs for our agencies, including cost of living adjustments needed to retain the qualified staff we have in an understaffed system. As a state, we have already seen the effects of what an underfunded system looks like, with specific agency programs closing their doors, high wait lists for services, and turnover in staffing, which directly impact care needs. Without rate increases, our services will continue to erode and threaten our ability to provide preventative upstream services. Without strong home and community-based services, individuals are forced to seek care in more costly facility-based care or emergency services. As an agency and part of the DA SSA system, we are committed to the work of supporting the most vulnerable among us, but need your support through this rate increase to continue to do this work. I appreciate the opportunity to advocate for this rate increase for our system, and thank you for the time you are taking to hear from so many different people as you make decisions in the best interest of Vermonters.
Thank you for that testimony.
Great, thank you. Next, we have Alicia Post, who's right here. And on Zoom, up next after Alicia is Johnny Gifford.
Hi, my name is Alicia Post. I'm the co-director of outpatient services at Washington County Mental Health in Berlin, Vermont. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I'm here to advocate for a 6.2% Medicaid rate increase amounting to $13.95 million in general funds for designated and specialized service agencies like ours. This funding is critical to maintaining essential services for Vermonters needing mental health, substance use, and supports for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We deeply appreciate the state's recognition of our role in supporting the most vulnerable members of our community. Your commitment to mental health and substance use care and supports for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities is vital, and we are grateful for your continued support. A 6.2% increase is crucial for sustaining the work that we do. Our services include things like trauma treatment, providing individual and group therapy, case management, and dyadic work for children impacted by trauma. We also offer programs like reentry services for individuals involved in the correctional system, as well as evidence-based therapies like cognitive behavioral, dialectical behavioral, and eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. The demand for our services is growing, and recently we faced a 9-month wait list with high caseloads, complex needs, and a lack of competitive wages. We're struggling to retain skilled staff. Fewer people are entering the field of therapy, and many who can earn more in private practice. This leads to increased strain on our resources, making it harder to provide timely, effective care. When outpatient services like ours are underfunded, people end up in crisis situations, which are far more expensive and less effective in the long term. It's like not having a primary care doctor without preventative ongoing care. People turn to emergency services when their needs escalate. While emergency care is essential, it's not a substitute for upstream services. A 6.2% rate increase will ensure that agencies like ours can continue providing these vital services and meet the growing needs in our community. Thank you for your time and thoughtful consideration of this urgent matter.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next up is Johnny Gifford on Zoom, followed by Jenna O'Farrell on Zoom.
Hey there, looks like my video's working. My name is Johnny Gifford. I'm the executive director for Brattleboro Community Television. We're the community media center that serves southern Windham County. I'm here today to ask you to support the Vermont Access Network with a base appropriation of $1.35 million in fiscal year 26 as part of a 3-year funding plan that we've developed in consultation with the Secretary of State's office. The work we do for our community has the power to change lives. I mean, anywhere from like connecting citizens to their local select board meeting to teaching community members the latest technologies and digital literacy skills. I mean, I could keep going on. I want to tell a personal story since I know you've already heard from a couple of my other colleagues. One of our members just released a documentary about a family-owned lumber mill that shut down after 87 years in the community. She did this entirely using our equipment from BCTV. our facilities and our guidance over the course of 2 years. It's now selling out screenings across Southeast Vermont. It's scheduled to show in the main theater of the historic Latches Theater this weekend. And just seeing where she is now, we feel like proud parents. Her film has brought family and community together in meaningful ways. It's even brought like new inspired members to our center who want to tell stories and use our resources to do that. So, the point of this is that her work and the work that the rest of our staff, our board, and our members do just would not be possible without years of funding from Comcast Cable. But as that is declining, funding from the state of Vermont is becoming increasingly important to uphold what we're doing for our community. So thank you for considering your support for the Vermont Access Network's base appropriation of $1.35 million in fiscal year 26. Again, we've been working on this 3-year funding plan with the Secretary of State's office. Thank you for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up is Jenna O'Farrell on Zoom, followed by Frank Knack, also on Zoom.
Hi, my name is Jenna O'Farrell. I'm the Executive Director of Northeast Kingdom Community Action and President of the statewide Vermont Community Action Partnership, or VCAP, which is made up of Capstone, CVOEO, SEVCA, and BROC. VCAP is requesting $15.8 million in HOP grant funding in the FY26 budget to support homelessness prevention services across the state. For 60 years, Community Action has inspired a spirit of hope and helped individuals and families connect to approaches that help them succeed. Our communities are healthier, safer, and happier when we meet the needs of everyone who lives in them. People facing homelessness are parents, children, siblings, your friends, neighbors, and coworkers. Without support from any one of us, we are a finite number of paychecks or personal crises away from confronting this challenge. When the state of Vermont supports people facing homelessness, we fulfill a promise that help will be there when it's needed. Holistic homelessness prevention services are a great example. They help people address diverse emerging challenges so they can secure and thrive in stable housing. Homelessness prevention reduces the need for shelter and the hotel-motel stays, shortens their duration when needed, and reduces reliance on costly emergency services. VCAP services cover the entire country, every county and corner of the state in Vermont. In 2024 alone, we served over 43,000 Vermonters, from Head Start to fuel assistance, shelter operations, housing navigation, food insecurity, financial skill building, disaster assistance, and community justice. Vermont's community action agencies address all dimensions of poverty in our state and understand how best to counter its root causes. This deep experience informs and strengthens our homelessness prevention services. Again, VCAP is requesting $15.8 million in HOP grant funding to support homelessness prevention services across the state. We also ask that you support the budget request of the House and Homelessness Alliance of Vermont, in which we are members of. Thank you for this opportunity to testify. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Frank Knack on Zoom, followed by Helen Layden, who I believe is here in the field. Okay.
Frank's not there? Okay.
He's not here.
Not here.
Okay, Helen, come on up. And after Helen will be Mary Beth Pinard, who is on Zoom.
Right. Thank you. So I'm speaking this evening on behalf of the Long-Term Care Crisis Coalition, a partnership of 8 organizations representing more than 200 service providers engaged in different aspects of long-term care in Vermont. Long-term care services support our family members, friends, and neighbors who are unable to perform basic activities of daily living, such as dressing and bathing. Support can be offered in an individual's home or at facilities in their community. Coalition members serve thousands of Vermonters every day. However, access to these services is threatened by a combination of workforce shortages, mounting federal pressure, and chronic underfunding by Medicaid. A Medicaid rate study performed by the Agency of Human Services in 2023 showed underpayment of as much as 80% when compared to the actual cost of services. And to be clear, that's not paying 80% of costs. It's needing an 80% increase to break even to cost. Some rates were increased in 2023, thank you, to match the study's findings, and others were not. And of course, costs have gone up every year since then. Unfortunately, the governor's proposed budget in fiscal year 2026 includes no increases for home and community-based long-term care services. Providers cannot continue operating without adequate payment. That is why we have crisis in our coalition name. the Long-Term Care Crisis Coalition is requesting full implementation of the rate increases described in the 2023 study. That is approximately $6 million from the general fund. We are also requesting a 4% inflationary adjustment to reflect rising costs. I have much more time left than I thought I was going to. I just imagine 20 seconds of thanking you for the previous increases and for listening to my testimony here tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Okay, on Zoom is Mary Beth Kennard, followed by Maria King, who's also on Zoom.
Yes, thank you. My name is Mary Beth Kennard. I'm the Executive Director of Vermont Catholic Charities. Vermont Catholic Charities is a statewide social service agency serving all Vermonters regardless of faith since 1929. We offer emergency aid, counseling services, and operate 3 level 3 residential care homes located in Derby Line, Rutland, and in Burlington. Over 80% of the 150 residents we serve are on Medicaid. Our facility in Derby Line is one of the few level 3 residential care homes in the Northeast Kingdom. One missing piece from the governor's proposed budget is any increase for ACCS or ERC. These are 2 payments that make up the core of Medicaid reimbursement for residential care providers. Our request is for full funding of the DIVA rate study and a 4% inflationary increase. A rate increase is necessary for residential care homes operated by Vermont Catholic Charities and others to continue to provide the extraordinary care and services to residents and to hire and retain high qualified staff to care for our residents. The current reimbursement rate just does not cover our cost of care. Operational costs continue to increase, staff wages, employee health insurance, supplies, and food, to name a few. These increases without a Medicaid reimbursement rate increase will continue to widen the financial gap we face. In an already tight labor market, we continue to face staffing shortages in nursing and often cannot compete with marketplace wages. Unfortunately, September of 2023, we made the tough decision to close one of our facilities in Rutland, which had a special care unit due to the ongoing nurse workforce shortage, the associated high costs of contract nursing, and the low Medicaid reimbursement rate. As one of the oldest states in the nation with one of the highest life expectancy rates and lower than average median income, we anticipate the need for residential care will only increase for those on Medicaid. If we cannot continue to afford to provide this care, who will? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up is Maria King on Zoom, followed by Denise Smith, also on Zoom.
Hello, my name is Maria King from St. Albans. I am the long-term care administrator for Cathedral Square, a service-oriented affordable housing organization that operates 2 assisted living communities, Cathedral Square Assisted Living and Memory Care at Allenbrook. I'd like to thank the committee for the opportunity to testify on the governor's 26 budget today. It is critical for older and disabled Vermonters to have access to skilled and reliable long-term care services. Our friends, neighbors, and family members who are unable to complete basic activities of daily living, such as dressing, bathing, meal prep, and medication management, depend on the support from Vermont's skilled nursing, residential care, and assisted living communities like Cathedral Square. We take pride in the quality of care we support, and we provide it utilizing an evidence-based practice called the Best Friends approach. Through this approach, staff participate in meaningful engagement and are dedicated to helping our residents feel loved, valued, safe, and secure. We want to provide older Vermonters who need this kind of care and housing, but we cannot given our current financial reality. Over the last 6 years, 21 long-term care communities have closed, a total of 123 beds lost, while Vermont's seniors encompass the fastest growing age cohort in the state and the need for care is at its highest. Simply put, the governor's proposed budget does not adequately speak to the current long-term care crisis we are facing. In order for communities to continue to adequately and safely provide quality of care to older and disabled Vermonters, keep pace with inflation, and support competitive staff wages, we respectfully request your committee to do the following. We request $6 million in general fund dollars for full implementation of the increases for enhanced residential care and home-based choices for care services as described in the 23 DIVA rate study, and an inflationary adjustment of 4% to all long-term care reimbursement rates to reflect rising cost. Without this, communities like Cathedral Square will have to reduce capacity at a time when Vermonters need it the most. Thank you for your time and letting me speak today.
Next up is Denise Smith on Zoom, followed by Nicole Miller, also on Zoom.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for holding this forum and for having me speak in today. My name is Denise Smith. I live in St. Albans, Vermont, and I'm the Executive Director of the Vermont Council on Rural Development, the backbone organization for Working Lands Coalition and the Working Lands Partnership. I'm here to request that the caucus or that the budget supports the Working Lands Coalition's request to appropriate $3 million for the Working Lands Enterprise Fund for FY 2026. The support of the Working Lands Enterprise Initiatives has been very valuable over the past several years. We very much appreciate that. Vermont Working Lands are a quintessential part of who we are, our identity, and the character of our landscape. These lands are a core value of our identity as Vermonters. The funding we seek helps Vermonters improve their resilience by supporting our agricultural and forestry economies, which are necessary for the success of rural Vermont families and communities. In the 12 years, the Working Lands Enterprise Initiative has directly invested $18.8 million in 555 farm and food and forestry projects and leveraged an additional $30.9 million in matching funds. We appreciate very much the $1 million in the governor's budget right now, and we ask to consider increasing that amount to $3 million for FY 2026. As you know, the applications continue to exceed the amount of available funding. According to the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food and Market Impact Report for 2024, applications totaled over $16 million, while they were only able to fund $3 million worth of projects was available. The Working Lands Enterprise Grants has been a core funding mechanism for our local economy and has helped Vermonters start, expand, and pivot their businesses so they are able to maintain their existence and contribute to our rural economy. Thank you again for having me tonight.
Thank you.
Next up is Nicole Miller on Zoom, followed by Will Lambeck, who I believe is in the room.
Good evening. My name is Nicole Miller, and I'm the Executive Director of Vermont After School, a nonprofit organization that works to strengthen after-school and summer programs, empower youth, and expand access to those programs so that any child or youth in Vermont who wants to attend an after-school or summer program can do so. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I asked the Senate and House Appropriations Committees to support the governor's proposal to fully fund the After School and Summer Special Fund administered by the Agency of Education. As a youth, my family moved around a lot. Both of my parents worked full-time jobs with an hour or more commute each way, and we rarely had the funds to participate in out-of-school time experiences or clubs. Most times, my sister was my after-school program, and despite trying, it wasn't a very fun experience. In my 17 or more years in the after-school and summer field, I have seen firsthand the power of these programs and its impacts on hundreds, if not thousands, of youth. Through consistent participation in these programs, youth gain critical skills, experience belonging and connection, increase protective factors, decrease risky behaviors, improve academic outcomes, and so much more. Furthermore, a 26-year longitudinal study from Dr. Deb Vandell and her colleagues at the School of Education at the University of California, Irvine, show consistent participation in programs predicts outcomes not only for the time in which youth are attending an after-school or summer program, but for years to come. However, in Vermont, we do not yet have enough after-school and summer programs available for every child or youth who wants to attend one, regardless of where they live, their age, their family's social, economic background, and many other barriers. We need to ensure that every child or youth in Vermont has these opportunities, and fully funding the After School and Summer Special Fund, as in the governor's budget proposal, helps us get there. Thank you so much for listening today.
Thank you, Nicole.
Okay. Next up is Will Lambeck is here, and then Jessa Barnard, who is on Zoom. Okay.
Good evening, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Will Lambeck, and I am with the organization Migrant Justice and a resident of Burlington, Vermont. Thanks very much for having me here with you all this afternoon. Migrant Justice is a grassroots human rights organization founded and led by Vermont's community of immigrant farm workers. But I'm actually here today to speak about the Vermont Human Rights Commission, which is requesting money for 2 staff positions in the budget adjustment of this fiscal year, and has a proposal codified in H38 to request additional funding for more positions in next fiscal year's budget. Migrant Justice over the years has referred many cases to the Vermont Human Rights Commission, which is for many low-income Vermonters, and particularly non-English speaking Vermonters, really the only forum where they can be heard about cases regarding public accommodations or housing discrimination. And I think we all know that in today's political climate, we're just going to see more and more of these cases happening. The staff of the Vermont Human Rights Commission has been excellent. They've always responded with the utmost professionalism. But unfortunately, the wait times are long and getting longer. And that means for many people submitting complaints who have experienced discrimination, it takes months and months for their cases to be investigated and adjudicated. And for too many, justice delayed is justice denied. So we really hope that HRC will receive the funding that they're requesting, as they'll be adequately staffed in order to appropriately handle the complaints that they're receiving. Thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Next up is Jessa Barnard on Zoom, followed by Chad Butt, also on Zoom.
Good evening. Thank you. Jessa Barnard. I am the Executive Director of the Vermont Medical Society. We are a physician and PA membership association, and I'm here tonight speaking on behalf of primary care practices in all settings, hospital-based, independent, and FQHC, and to talk about the need for lawmakers to include vital primary care investments in the 2026 budget. We need primary care to make progress on Vermont's goals of reducing healthcare costs, increasing access, and improving quality of care. Yet Vermont faces a cliff in primary care funding in 2026. That is caused by the end of our current one care all payer model in 2025 and not joining the AHEAD model until 2027. So we're facing a real crisis in primary care funding for 2026 that we ask the legislature to address before we leave more Vermonters without a medical home. I've submitted some more detailed testimony in writing, itemizing out what the gaps in funding are, but they include $5.5 million in lost ACO funds that are not currently included in the governor's recommended budget, $4.45 million in state funds for lost Medicare payments to the Blueprint for Health program that is in the governor's recommended budget, and we encourage continuing that funding, and continued funding for the Blueprint for Health expansion pilot that assists primary care practices in addressing mental health, substance use disorder, and social determinants of health needs that is not in the governor's recommended budget. We also ask for vital investments in building our primary care workforce through funding a primary care family medicine residency training program and continuing the medical student incentive scholarship program that has a sunset in 2027. So thank you for listening and all you can do to keep primary care available to Vermonters.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next up is Chad Butt on Zoom, followed by Elise Schanbacher, also on Zoom.
Good afternoon. I'm Chad Butt, the Executive Director of Mentor Vermont. I believe that potential is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. I invite all of you to think about a mentor you've had in your life and the impact they've had on you, and what mentors have helped you get here today. When young people have mentors in their lives, they feel like they have someone to turn to for support, and they feel like they matter. We see all too often in our communities across the state, young people don't feel connected and supported by their community. In the latest Youth Risk Behavior Survey results, only 54% of middle and high school students in Vermont express that they feel like they matter to their community. Yet we know that 96% of youth mentees report that their mentor makes them feel like they matter. Supportive mentoring relationships are imperative for fostering youth mental health and healthy youth development. For a relatively small investment, we can help equalize the opportunity for access to a caring adult and a supportive relationship that can last a lifetime for a young person. Yet 1 in 3 young people in Vermont will grow up without someone to turn to for support beyond their immediate family. Without someone to turn to for guidance, without someone to share their passions and dreams with, and without someone to explore their interests with. When young people have a supportive mentor in their life, they're more engaged in school and in their community. Youth in Vermont need support, and the impact of mentoring has been made clear through research and evidence-based practices. Mentor Vermont is requesting the state increase its investment in youth mentoring in FY26 from $650,000 to $1.3 million to help ensure that more young people in Vermont have access to a caring, consistent mentor and have the supportive mentoring relationships they need to thrive. Funding at this level will enable Mentor Vermont to provide mentoring agencies across the state with much needed funding to increase staff time and better meet the needs of their communities, and for Mentor Vermont to support the establishment of mentoring programs in underserved areas of the state. Mentoring is a cost-effective prevention tool that has lasting impacts on youth, mentors, and the greater community. An increased yearly investment in the state is greatly needed to ensure that our young people are growing up with the supportive mentoring relationships they need to grow and thrive. Thank you so much for my time.
Thank you.
Next up, Jen Becker, on Zoom, followed by Jamie Dancero, who should be here in the room.
Thank you, chairpersons and members, for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Elise Schenbacher, and I'm the Executive Director of Addison Housing Works and a resident of Verdun's. I strongly support base funding for the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board at $36.9 million, as well as an additional $40 million to ensure all anticipated housing projects can move forward this year. Base funding is critical, but it only represents half of the HCB's recent funding levels. Vermont cannot afford to cut affordable housing production in half when we already produce fewer than half the 5,000 to 7,000 homes needed annually. In Addison County, AHW is putting state investment to work with tangible results. For example, we reinvested $5 million into a community wastewater system serving 67 Middlebury households with failing septics. A $650,000 state investment from VHCB leveraged $3.5 million in federal funds, not only ensuring these homes remain viable, but also potentially supporting additional new cost-effective manufactured homes. We've also completed preliminary engineering for over $20 million in additional infrastructure projects to sustain our MHCs, ensuring long-term affordability while protecting water quality, health, and safety. But without robust VHCB investment, these projects and the critical rural housing they support are at risk. Another important budget priority is the Mobile Home Improvement and Repair, or MHIR program, but accessing it can be a challenge. Many residents who are working families, seniors, and people with disabilities struggle with the paperwork and online application process. Thanks to VHCB funding for resident services, AHW has helped residents secure over $450,000 in MHIR funds for essential home repairs and energy efficiency, funds that may have gone unused without this support. Finally, VHCB funds have helped us develop much-needed affordable apartments. To name just one recent example, VHCB's $1.1 million state investment in Firehouse Apartments leveraged $7.2 million in private equity and federal funding, creating 20 workforce housing units near jobs in downtown Bristol and boosting the local economy. VHCB funding is not just about building homes, it's about leveraging resources, maximizing impact, and ensuring all Vermonters have safe, stable, affordable housing. As Vermont pursues regulatory reform to unleash private development, we cannot leave our most vulnerable neighbors behind. Cutting VHCB funding now would slow economic growth and deepen our housing crisis. Please fully fund VHCB to meet Vermont's housing needs now and in the years ahead. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Next up is Jamie Dancero, here in the room, followed by Christine Hazard, who's on Zoom.
Good evening. My name is Jamie Dancer, and I'm the Director of After School and Summer Programming for the West River Education District in the Wyndham Central Supervisory Union, serving the communities of Jamaica, Townsend, Brookline, and Newfane. I am here tonight to urge you to support the governor's proposal to fully fund the After School Special Fund. We are at a crossroads, not just here in Vermont, but across our nation. In uncertain times, one thing remains clear: after-school programs must be a priority. They require consistent, sustainable funding to continue delivering the engagement, self-confidence, and social-emotional support that our students need and deserve. These are not accidental benefits of after-school programs. They are essential components of the well-rounded education that Vermonters have valued for generations. I have seen firsthand how after-school programs help communities thrive. I have also seen communities struggle in their absence. In areas I serve, there is no other option without these programs. Children would go home to empty houses, left to their own devices, often consumed by screens without supervision or support. Worse yet, as we all know, unsupervised time can lead to dangerous choices, including vaping, alcohol, and drug use. Please don't force families to decide whether a child is old enough to stay home alone. Please don't ask children to stay out of trouble while they are left without guidance. Please continue to invest in after-school programs that keep our children safe, engaged, and supported. Some may argue that schools already provide activities during this time for students. That is true. Athletics, music, and theater are valuable, but not every child feels at home on a field, a court, or stage. Fortunately, many schools are taking steps to elevate after-school programs, recognizing They're important. Let's take this step as a state as well. By supporting the governor's proposal for the fund after school, you are sending a message to all families. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Christine Hazard on Zoom, and after Christine is Daryl Rudy, who is in the room? On Zoom. On Zoom, okay.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Christine Hazard, the Executive Director of Brattleboro Housing Partnerships. We're partnering with Wyndham and Windsor Housing Trust, supported by Cathedral Square Corporation, to pilot the Support and Services at Home SASH for All program based on the traditional SASH model. We are in the middle of our third year of the pilot program, serving 250 Vermonters. One of these families is a family of 4. They all manage chronic and complex health issues that involve physical and mental symptoms. They utilize SASH for All services for tasks ranging from disability applications, navigating interpersonal complaints, addressing mental health concerns, and managing the death of close family members. Most recently, a parent in the household received news that they required a life-altering surgery. Right away, the SASH for All team planned for addressing these complex and emergent family needs through tasks like releases of information, scheduling care team meetings, and coordinating services from the SASH for All nurse and embedded wellness mental health clinician. Without these services, the family would have had significant decreased potential for positive emotional and physical health outcomes. While the governor's budget included gap year funding for the traditional SASH program, it did not include the funding to continue or expand SASH for All. We are ready to expand the pilot to serve approximately 1,200 people across Vermont, including the areas of highest need. It will cost $400,000 to continue the existing pilot and $2 million to expand the SASH for All across the state. Importantly, without the $400,000, the pilot will end and participants in Brattleboro will lose these vital services. Thank you for your consideration in continuing and to expanding the funding for the SASH for All program. Thank you.
Next up is Daryl Rudy on Zoom, followed by Sam Smith, also on Zoom.
Hello, my name is Daryl Rudy, and I'm asking you to please invest in long-term home and community-based care. Like more than 13,000 other Vermonters over the age of 65, I have Alzheimer's and I've had it for 4 years. I live in St. Johnsbury with my partner, Barb. I know my cognition and all functions connected to my brain are going to slowly decline. I need to know Barb and I will have the support we need for me to remain safely in my home or near St. Johnsbury. I don't know exactly what support I will need, but I know Barb and I will need help. The lifetime cost of Alzheimer's is estimated to be $400,000 or more, with more than 70% being borne by the family. Like so many other Vermonters, we will rely on choices for care or other Medicaid programs. I was shocked to learn the financial instability in this system, and I ask you to do everything in your power to ensure these services remain a viable option for us. To learn that long-term care providers that accept Medicaid didn't even get a cost of living increase in the budget this year is unacceptable. I'm asking you to please include an inflationary adjustment of 4% to all long-term care reimbursement rates and to do everything in your power to ensure home and community-based providers are able to support Vermonters like me in the future. And I thank you very, very much for listening to this and hope you take action. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Next up is Sam Smith on Zoom, and then we will go to Sarah Keblin, who I think is in the room.
Hello, thank you for having me tonight. My name is Sam Smith. I live in Charlotte and work for the Intervale Center as the Farm Business Director. I have provided farm business planning support to hundreds of farmers statewide over the last 12 years. I am here today to voice my support for the Vermont Food Security Roadmap to 2035, which is a plan to promote a robust, viable agricultural sector engaged in providing food for local communities. The priorities outlined in the roadmap are essential to the community providers, farmers, and partners engaged in the on-the-ground work of ensuring Vermonters that they have the food that they need. The priorities outlined in the roadmap were developed with broad community involvement. Some of them involve state funding, and they all work towards a unified goal of creating a food-secure Vermont. They move us toward a community where all are fed, farmers are able to earn enough to support their families. These priorities are all important for the push towards a just and equitable food system. The priorities are fund the Vermont Food Bank's appropriation request of $5 million. Continue funding the Land Access and Opportunity Board so that it can perform its statutory powers and duties for improving land and housing access among historically marginalized and disadvantaged communities. Appropriate $20 million for the Farm Security Fund to support emergency farm recovery from adverse weather events. Convert $323,000 in one-time funding for Vermont 211 to base funding, and increase the public investment in Crop Cash Plus and Farm Share to $500,000 in base funding. All of the priorities listed will have a profound impact on the health of our fellow Vermonters and the viability of farms that are at the heart of our rural communities. They reinforce the resilience of our local food system that can weather the uncertainty of our current political moment and increasingly volatile impacts of climate change. These priorities are the conscious policy choices that feed our neighbors and strengthen farmers. We are already on the road to a food security in Vermont, and by funding our coalition's priorities,
Sam, we gotta
will move
end
us
the-
further forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Sarah Kevlin, who's right here, and followed by Denise Walton, who's on Zoom.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Kevlin. I work at Vermont Food Bank and live in Huntington. I'm here to ask the legislature to appropriate $5 million for Vermont Food Bank to support our ongoing responsive readiness and to support food purchase and distribution with our network of more than 220 food shelf and meal site partners. Testimony by so many representing organizations across Vermont tonight and since the start of the session reinforce so many of the challenges individuals and households are facing in this moment. Hunger and lack of access to the food we need is both a symptom and a contributor to so many of these challenges. Vermont Food Bank, the state's only food bank, along with its more than 220 partners, has seen increased need for food help over the last 2 years. Vermont Food Bank's operations are about 25% above plan levels. We had hoped the need would recede after the pandemic, but in fact, inflation, costs of everyday things, flooding, and other economic stressors have continued to put untenable pressure on household budgets. Many people, many of our neighbors, many of our families are making tough choices to buy medicine, heat their homes, or to purchase food. Our food shelf partners report anywhere from 20 to more than 110% increases in visitors over the last year. And Vermont Food Bank is distributing twice as much food as it did before the pandemic in 2019. We found that ongoing weather disasters add urgency to our basic operations and know we have to remain responsive and strong as these are no longer 100-year events. We ask the legislature to continue its partnership with Vermont Food Bank to make sure we can continue to do this vital work, providing the most basic need to tens of thousands of people across Vermont each month. Again, please appropriate $5 million to Vermont Food Bank to strengthen our responsive readiness and support food purchase and distribution, along with our 220 partner food shelves and meal sites. Thanks so much, and thank you all for your work on behalf of people in Vermont.
Thank you.
Next up is Denise Walton on Zoom, followed by Nick Bennett, also on Zoom.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here today. I'm Denise Walton, community member and resident of Concord, Vermont. I am also a volunteer at Sid's Food Pantry. I'm asking today that you could please appropriate $5 million to Vermont Food Bank for responsive readiness for food purchase and distribution, and to support network capacity for the 220 network partner food shelves and meal sites across our state. In the Concord In the community of Concord, many residents are elderly, widowed, disabled, veterans, and families with 2 to 3 generations in one household. It is also a rural area where transportation can be a barrier to food security. Sid's Pantry is open monthly for our residents of Essex County and patients at Concord Food Center. Currently, we serve 30 to 50 families with 1 to 7 household members. Being located at the health center is a great community partnership. We're able to set out fresh food, produce right in the waiting rooms of the health center, allowing folks to have healthy options and choices. With our Vermonters Feeding Vermonters grant, we are able to buy local food from farmers in our area. This brings some economic security to those farmers and great food to our community. In the summer, we host a healthy lunch program, pop-up health center. We use fresh foods and staples from the Vermont Food Bank. Folks get a healthy lunch and some social time. I'm proud of our little community of Concord and its residents. Sid's Pantry has grown over the years. We have worked hard with the food bank and received support, training, and grants. With the requested funding for Vermont Food Bank, we can continue to provide food security to those in need who need it most, our elders, veterans, widows and widowers, and to the families who are stretching their food budgets. I ask you to please appropriate $5 million for Vermont Food Bank for responsive readiness, for food purchase and distribution, and to support network capacity for the 220 plus network partner food shelves and meal sites across our state. Thank you for consideration and support to help food security in Vermont.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Nick Bennett on Zoom, followed by Luba Ruthsong, also on Zoom.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Nick Bennett. I live in Waterbury, Vermont, and I'm the executive director of the Vermont Mountain Bike Association. I also chair the Vermont Trails and Greenways Council, a collective of over 36 trail advocacy and stewardship organizations, and recognized in statute as an advisory body to the Agency of Natural Resources. Outdoor recreation has become a cornerstone of Vermont's physical, social, and economic well-being. In 2023 alone, outdoor recreation accounted for over $2 billion in economic return for Vermont, 4.8% of state GDP, an increase of over 200 basis points from 2022, and second in the nation, only behind Hawaii. Private landowners are absolutely vital to public access recreation and the benefits it provides to Vermonters and visitors. Of the over 8,000 miles of trails in Vermont open to the public, approximately 75% are graciously hosted by private landowners. Dispersed recreational opportunities like hunting and fishing are similarly heavily reliant on private land. The vast majority of these private landowners receive no recognition or other direct benefits for providing recreational access, giving them no incentive other than the benefits for their communities and allowing them to withdraw access at any time and with no consequences. House Bill 147, introduced earlier this month, would establish a recreational trails compensation study committee charged with evaluating how private lands are currently used for public access recreation and landowner costs and liabilities, estimating the economic value of public recreation on private land, analyzing existing approaches employed elsewhere, and ultimately recommending if and how landowners should be recognized. The committee will also consider how a program would ensure high-quality trail construction and maintenance, as well as how to consider the specific value a hosted asset brings in recognition or compensation model. H147 includes a one-time $250,000 appropriation for the committee to contract consulting support to pursue its objectives and create a report of findings and recommendations to the legislature. This one-time appropriation is an exceedingly small investment on what amounts to the bedrock of $2 billion in annual economic return for Vermont, and I strongly encourage the committees to consider funding it in full. Thank you again for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is Luba in the room by any chance? Okay, we will skip. They're not on Zoom. Then next on Zoom is Nash Pruka, and followed by Remington Savoy. Everybody on Zoom.
Ash, okay, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Nash Pruka, and I'm the general manager at Run Amok Maple. I oversee a staff of about 20 employees who manage 2,000 acres of forest land in Chittenden and Lamoille County. I am here to talk about my experience with the Serve, Learn, Earn program at VYCC, and I am asking the legislature to include a $2.5 million for Serve, Learn, Earn funding in the base fiscal year of the 2026 budget. At Run Amok Maple, we've partnered with the VYCC in order to help us with our yearly need for staffing throughout the sugaring season. And this past September, I attended a job fair at VYCC's campus in Richmond. I had the privilege of speaking directly with many of their members about the work that we do in the woods at Run Amok Maple. And from this single tabling event, I was able to fill our roster for the upcoming season, sparing me a significant amount of effort in searching elsewhere. Meeting the individuals in this fashion allowed me to see them in a setting where they were already comfortable, giving them the confidence to ask me many questions I wouldn't ordinarily get interviewing an applicant. This led to a handful of people who got exactly what they were looking for in a job, and we received employees who effortlessly integrated into our crew. We've had a joke at work that an employee isn't going to be a real sugar maker in their first year due to the broad scope of the work that we do. The VYCC members we hired were not typical newcomers, and they brought with them solid experience of working outdoors under challenging conditions and demonstrated remarkable communication and teamwork skills. This background enabled them to integrate seamlessly into our crew and perform at a level of much more seasoned employees. I wholeheartedly believe in what they're doing, and it makes me proud to see so many young individuals making it their first choice to carve out a career in these trades. So I hope you can consider funding Save, Learn, Earn program. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next up is Remington Savoy on Zoom, and then Colin Hilliard here in the room.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Rem.
My name is Remington Savoy. I live in Westminster, Vermont with my 2-year-old daughter and my husband. I'm employed by a parent-child center organization, and I'm a Head Start parent. I'm asking you to secure $500,000 from the Tobacco Settlement Fund to increase base funding of the integrated grant to allow parent-child centers to consistently and comprehensively provide tobacco cessation, referrals, and support for pregnant people and families with young children, as well as educate and support to ensure infants and young children are not exposed to secondhand smoke. For years, I've watched the women in my life deal with stress by smoking. When I was going through a difficult time in my personal life last year, I followed in their footsteps and began vaping. This is a habit that I'm not proud of. Vaping makes me feel mentally weak, and it upsets me to think that I have so easily fallen into this trap. I need to quit in order to be able to model healthy coping mechanisms to my daughter. Securing this funding will allow me to get resources that myself and so many other parents need to quit for good. Again, I'm asking you to secure $500,000 from the Tobacco Settlement Fund to increase base funding of the integrated grant to allow PCCs to consistently and comprehensively provide tobacco cessation, referrals, and support for pregnant people and families with young children, as well as educate and support to ensure infants and young children are not exposed to secondhand smoke. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you.
Next up is Colin Hilliard, who is here, and then on Zoom following Colin is Tina Zoom.
Hi, my name is Colin Hilliard. I'm the Advocacy Director for ARP Vermont. On behalf of ARP's 110,000 members in Vermont, I want to thank you for the opportunity to testify today. ARP, 3 items I want to talk about. First, ARP requests a $235,000 appropriation for Home Share Vermont to expand its service area to include Orleans, Essex, Caledonia, Windham County, and the remaining towns in Windsor County. Home Share's expansion plan involves sharing case managers from local partner organizations, thus maximizing the value of these funds. Expanding Home Share's services statewide has been suggested by lawmakers for many years and has been identified as a strategy for supportive living in Vermont's Strong Plan. Simply put, funding this expansion is an efficient and affordable way to tackle both the housing crisis and ensure that older Vermonters have more choices in living an independent and vibrant life. Second, ARP is requesting a $125,000 in general fund appropriation to establish the Age Strong Commission in order to advance, monitor, and administer the 10-year multi-sector plan on aging by advising and educating policymakers and the administration, in addition to advancing a culture of healthy, active aging through education and outreach. And lastly, ARP is a member of the Long-Term Care Crisis Coalition. I know you've heard from a bit here, and we want to highlight the coalition's 2 requests as well. Full implementation of the increases for home-based choices for care, services, and enhanced residential care as described in the 2023 DEVA rate study. That's a total general fund investment of $6 million and also an inflationary adjustment of 4% to all long-term care reimbursement rates. Long-term care is a critical service for our most vulnerable, and it enables Vermonters to age with dignity in our communities. Without budgetary supports, we could see further reductions in services and the closure of providers. Vermonters deserve a robust and sustainable long-term care system that can meet the changing needs as they age. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Tina Zuf on Zoom, and Heidi Katz is also on Zoom.
Good evening. On behalf of the American Heart Association, we'd appreciate it if you would consider including the following in your FY26 budget. The first would be $150,000 to provide a grant program rather, for Vermont schools most in need of resources to implement cardiac emergency response plans. Vermont's cardiac arrest survival rate is among the lowest in the nation at 7.5%, and that means most victims die. Survival rates are low because only about 40% of people who suffer cardiac arrest get the immediate help they need from lay responders before EMS arrives. And Vermont's rural nature delays response time from even the best rescue services. We're working to pass legislation ensuring that schools and sporting events have cardiac emergency response plans, which can double and even triple survival rates. The plans create an emergency team that is CPR trained, have AEDs well placed and publicly accessible, make sure the devices are maintained, the plan is practiced with a drill, and the team integrates with EMS. While more than 200 Vermont schools have AEDs, this funding would help ensure equity by providing funds for schools that may have few resources. It could be used for AEDs and the cost of CPR training. Cardiac arrests do happen at Vermont schools, 24 in the last 10 years, including at the Milton versus Barry basketball game on January 3rd at Spalding, where 16-year-old Milton sophomore Dominic Barkham was saved due to the cardiac emergency response plan training and quick response of Spalding staff and coaches. This small investment of $150,000 literally could mean the difference between life and death. We have also submitted written testimony with some additional budget requests, and they include increasing income eligibility for pregnant women under Dr. Dinosaur, protecting funding for school meals, and early childhood education. Thank you so much, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you. Okay, next up is Heidi Katz, followed by Sarah. I'm going to mispronounce it, sorry, Sarah Hugis, but all on Zoom.
Hello, my name is Heidi Katz. I live in Norwich, Vermont, and I am a post-permanent supervisor with Easter Seals. Post-permanency services help adoption and guardianship caregivers build the confidence, therapeutic parenting skills, and networks they need to care successfully for their child. To begin, I want to thank you for supporting an increase in post-permanency funding last year. I'm not here to ask for any additional funding this year. We ask you to support the level of funding in the governor's recommended FY26 budget. Rather, I'm here to share a little bit about my own experience with the Easter Seals post-permanency program and why your support makes a difference for families in Vermont. My family adopted my younger brother when he was an infant. Like many families formed through adoption, we were naively optimistic. Over time, my parents learned firsthand about the significant impact that experiences in utero and during the first few months of life can have on a child's development. My brother would have explosive outbursts and tantrums that would last for hours, and my parents felt unequipped to parent him, despite having raised myself and my older biological brother fairly successfully. They struggled understanding the system of care and knowing how and where to access help. Eventually, they were told about the Easter Seals post-permanency program, and they reached out for support. My brother is now 19 years old, and they're still receiving support from their original permanency worker. She's been a constant provider in their life, supporting them through difficult times and celebrating the growth that my brother and my parents have made. Knowing how valuable this program has been to my family, I decided to pursue a career in it to support families like mine in navigating the complexities that come with adoption and guardianship. I'm grateful to be a part of this meaningful work. I'd like to conclude by thanking you again for your continued support for post-permanency and for taking the time to listen. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next up is Sarah Hugis on Zoom, followed by April Palmer, also on Zoom.
Thanks, not too bad. It's Hugis. Appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time to listen today. My name is Sarah Hugis, and I'm requesting that the legislature allocate $2.5 million in funding to the Serve, Learn, Earn program in the FY26 budget. Serve, Learn, Earn is a Vermont-based workforce collaborative consisting of Audubon Vermont, Resource Vermont, Vermont Works for Women, and the Vermont Youth Conservation Corps. Together, we provide Vermonters with valuable opportunities to develop skills, give back to their communities, and earn compensation while pursuing careers in conservation and the trades. I'm the Senior Youth Conservation Leadership Coordinator at Audubon, Vermont, where I oversee all Serve, Learn, Earn programs and directly supervise dozens of our participants. Since the program's inception, I've seen countless of success stories unfold, starting with my own. I was an environmental education AmeriCorps member for 2 years at Audubon, and then was hired as a sugaring crew assistant, and finally secured the full-time job in my current position. I know firsthand the confidence, community, and skills Serve, Learn, Earn programs provide. The positions we offer are the reason that some participants want to and are able to stay in Vermont, which is important to consider with our aging workforce. Besides myself, I've watched quiet, disengaged teens come alive in the woods while conducting forestry assessments, with some actually going on to pursue degrees in wildlife biology or environmental studies at UVM. Many of our interns and AmeriCorps members have landed careers in Vermont after working with us. Some of our alumni are employed at places like Shelburne Farms, Vermont Fish and Wildlife, COTS, the Howard Center, public schools, Vermont Center for Geographic Information, Vermont Center for Eco Studies, and more. Lots of organizations that are giving back to the greater community of Vermont. The sense of community we foster in our programs, along with the transferable and industry-specific skills participants develop, are among our most valuable outcomes. To continue compensating young people for these important roles and grow the workforce in our little state, we are again requesting $2.5 million in funding for Serve, Learn, Earn in the FY26 budget. Thanks so much for your time tonight.
Thanks.
Next up is April Palmer. The next person is canceled, so we won't hear from him. But then after that is Isaac Mbongo, who is in the room somewhere. So.
Hi
Okay.
there. Thanks for your attention. My name is April Soons Palmer, and I live in South Hero. I'm the manager of the Champlain Islands Farmers Markets, and I'm also on the board of the Vermont Farmers Market Association. In both capacities, I work closely with NOFA Vermont and can attest that their work is essential for sustaining thriving farmers and healthy communities. I'm here today to support NOFA Vermont's request for $500,000 in base funding to strengthen Vermont farm viability and address food security by sustaining 2 proven programs, Crop Cash Plus and Farm Share. I manage 2 weekly farmers markets throughout the growing season in South Hero and Grand Isle. Every market, we have a number of customers who come to my table to utilize their SNAP and EBT cards. The Crop Cash program allows them to match their first $20 in benefits with Crop Cash coupons to spend on local fresh fruits and vegetables from our farmers. These coupons go a long way to stretch the tight budgets of those families who are most in need of food assistance. They also allow our hardworking farmers to be paid fairly for the literal fruits of their labor. The Crop Cash program enables our SNAP customers to shop locally at farmers market and increases the accessibility to fresh, nutritious food. In 2023, the Crop Cash Plus pilot program allowed customers to access not only fresh produce with their coupons, but also local eggs, meat, honey, canned goods, pasta, and bread. This variety was hugely appreciated by our customers and led to increased sales overall for many of our small business farmers. These programs have been instrumental in helping connect healthy, locally farmed food to families and folks who most need it, and to spread the idea that farmers markets and fresh food are for everyone. They also help strengthen our Vermont economy by encouraging folks to spend their dollars locally. To reiterate, I am here to support NOFA Vermont's request for $500,000 in base funding to strengthen Vermont farm viability and address food security by sustaining 2 proven programs, Crop Cash Plus and Farm Share. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next up is Isaac Mbongo. And then on Zoom is Autumn Moen.
Hello, my name is Noah Cass, and I am a program manager at Resource Youth Build in Burlington. I'm here with Isaac Mbongo, who is one of our young leaders, to speak on behalf of the Serve, Learn, Earn collaborative and say thank you for funding us the last 3 years. And we're explicitly asking for $2.5 million to be included in FY26 budget. Your funding allows us to work with truly brilliant young people like Isaac, and I'll let Isaac talk about the Youth Build program from here.
Hello, my name is Isaac Mbongo. I'm from Democratic Republic of Congo. I'm a student from Youth Build. First, construction is my passion for my life. That is why I chose Youth Build program. Youth Build is important to me because Youthville is different than Burlington High School. At Youthville, we have school and we work with the community. This year, we work to building affordable housing with the Habitat for Humanity. We are working on the housing destroyed by flooding. Every week, we also go to feeding Champlain Valley and help people get food for free. I'm feeling very happy and excited to learn so many things from construction in English. I have more confidence from youth because I learned the construction mindset. That means it is important to have good attitude and to be respectful to anyone. I like Youthville because we not have construction practice every day, but we also have math class, science class, and English class. That is help students from high school get credit. Like me, when I finish Youthville, I will also get my high school diploma. Thank you for legislative support Youthville. That has changed my life.
Thank you both. Okay, next up is Autumn Moan on Zoom, followed by Aiden Otterman, also on Zoom.
Hello, chairs and members of the committees. My name is Autumn Moen, and I work at Hunger Free Vermont, and I'm a resident of Burlington. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today in support of legislation that will instruct the state to opt into the SNAP Restaurant Meals Program and allocate necessary funding to ensure its successful implementation. Specifically, H-151 and S-42 request $100,000 for a dedicated staff position within the Department for Children and Families, or DCF, to administer the program, and a fund of $75,000 to support restaurants' costs when enrolling, including changes to point-of-sale machines or software to accept SNAP benefits. DCF administers the state's Three Squares Vermont program, which is Vermont's name for the federal SNAP program. While a federal nutrition program, states have options to tailor SNAP to the needs of the state. The Restaurant Meals Program is one such option. This program allows older adults, people with disabilities, and those experiencing homelessness to use their federally funded Three Squares benefits to purchase hot meals at authorized restaurants. These populations often face significant barriers to accessing, storing, and preparing food, and ultimately using their Three Squares benefits at all. By expanding Three Squares benefits to include restaurants, we can ensure these vulnerable populations have access to the food they need. 9 states have already implemented the Restaurant Meals Program, and their experiences underscore a critical lesson. Without dedicated funding and staff, the program struggles to function effectively. Vermont has the opportunity to adopt policies that ensure every resident has reliable access to the food they need where they need it. A well-funded Restaurant Meals Program will uphold the dignity of choice that Three Squares Vermont is designated to provide. However, without proper investment, we risk setting up a program that lacks the capacity to truly serve those who need it most. I urge you to support this funding to ensure Vermont implements a high-quality program that makes a real difference for older, disabled, and homeless Vermonters enrolled in Three Squares Vermont. Thank you for the time and consideration.
Thank you.
Next up is Aiden Otterman on Zoom, followed by Carol Lang Godden, also on Zoom.
Go ahead, Aiden.
Sorry, my mute was not working. Good afternoon. My name is Aiden Otterman. I am from West Topsom, Vermont, and I am the chair of the Youth Voice Committee for the Vermont State Youth Council. I'm here today to request that the House and Senate Appropriations Committees ensure that there is funding for the Vermont State Youth Council in the fiscal year 2026. Vermont State Youth Council has been a key player in giving a voice to the youth of Vermont. And while the council itself is still in its infancy, we believe that we have many years of hard work representing the youth ahead of us. But without funding, that future is destitute. And without that future, around 24% of the population would lose their voice in state government. It is important that the council has the funding it needs to operate as a platform for youth civic engagement, and I ask that you please ensure that there is funding for the Vermont State Youth Council in the fiscal year 2026.
Great. Thank you.
Next up is Carol Lang Godden, followed by Keely Agen, all on Zoom.
Good evening. My name is Carol Lang-Godden. I'm the Executive Director at Lamoille Family Center in Morrisville, and I'm the Chair of the Vermont Parent-Child Center Network. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity, and thank you for your commitment to making Vermont a place we can all be proud of. We respectfully request that you support the Vermont Parent-Child Center Network's request to secure $500,000 from the Tobacco Settlement Fund for the base funding of our integrated grant. This funding will allow PCCs to consistently and comprehensively provide tobacco cessation referrals and support for pregnant people and families with young children, as well as education and support to ensure infants and young children are not exposed to secondhand smoke. Smoking cessation, prevention, and education activities will be embedded in the 8 core services offered by all 15 centers. Last year, PCCs served over 18,000 children and 17,000 parents statewide. PCC staff commonly see families in their homes or other comfortable settings and can develop trusting relationships, putting them in a unique position to provide referrals to cessation programs, education around secondhand smoke, and resources for coping without tobacco. Success in quitting and remaining smoke-free is more likely among people who have consistent social support and encouragement, which PCCs can provide. Again, we ask that you support the Parent-Child Center Network's request to secure $500,000 from the Tobacco Settlement Fund for the base funding of the integrated grant. This funding will allow us to more consistently and comprehensively provide tobacco cessation referrals and support for pregnant people and families with young children, as well as education and support to ensure infants and young children are not exposed to secondhand smoke. Thank you again for your time today and for your ongoing dedication and service.
Thank you, Keely.
Thanks. Keely's up next, and then Maddie Kempner.
Good evening. My name is Keely Agan, and I am the Early Childhood Nutrition Manager at Hunger Free Vermont and a lifelong Vermonter living in Burlington. Thank you, chairs and committee members, for the opportunity to provide testimony in support of our request for an appropriation of $182,000 as an incentive for child and adult care food program sponsor organizations. The Child and Adult Care Food Program, or the CACFP, is the most equitable way to provide nutritious meals and snacks in early childhood education settings because all children receive the same developmentally appropriate nutrition. In order to participate in the CACFP, family child care home programs are required to work with a CACFP sponsor organization. Without CACFP sponsor organizations, family child care home programs would not be able to participate in the CACFP, and many children in Vermont would not be able to access nutrition in their early childhood education programs. In recent years, the number of CACFP sponsor organizations has declined because the financial and capacity burden of being a CACFP sponsor organization became too much. The 3 CACFP sponsor organizations in Vermont are Brock Community Action Agency, Capstone Community Action, and the Winston Prouty Center for Child and Family Development. These 3 sponsoring organizations are responsible for administering CACFP for family child care home programs across the entire state. And at this time, the federal administrative payments that the CACFP sponsoring organizations receive do not adequately cover the cost of being a sponsoring organization. Thank you again for your consideration of our request to appropriate $182,000 to distribute among the 3 child and adult care food program sponsor organizations as an incentive to participate as a sponsor of the CACFP for family child care home programs. Please support this important initiative that will help more small, home-based family child care home programs ensure that children have access to nutritious meals. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Keely.
Thanks. Next up is Maddie Kempner, followed by Yasmin Zeisler. All on Zoom. Okay.
Thank you all for your important work and for taking the time to hear from members of the public this evening. My name is Maddie Kempner, and I'm the Policy Director at the Northeast Organic Farming Association of Vermont, or NOFA, and a resident of Cambridge. I'm here today to ask you to support $20 million in the FY 2026 budget for farmers to recover after a climate emergency or extreme weather event. These past 2 growing seasons, farmers experienced a late spring freeze, unprecedented flooding, and other extreme weather that devastated our state's agricultural communities. Flooding destroyed crops and livestock, damaged farm infrastructure, and in some cases washed away entire livelihoods. Many farms lost an entire season of planned revenue, and our state's farmers have now collectively endured tens of millions of dollars in damage and loss over the past 2 years. NOFA has had our own farmer emergency fund in place since 1997. Since that time, and especially in the past 2 years, we've learned a lot about what farmers go through when a flood or other weather emergency happens. The state collectively has learned a lot. We know that federal programs like crop insurance are not designed for or accessible to many of our farmers here in Vermont. The Agency of Agriculture's survey following the flooding in 2023 found that 70% of respondents were not covered by any form of crop or livestock insurance. In 2024, that number was still at 57%. And it's not for lack of trying. Most of the current federal programs and systems for farm disaster aid involve complex, administratively burdensome application processes, and in the end, often provide too little meaningful relief to make the hassle worthwhile. All of this further taxes a farmer's mental health in a time of acute crisis. Many of our farms cannot afford to weather impacts like the ones we've seen the past 2 years again and again. The state has a substantial interest in securing our farms' futures, and failure to support their recovery puts Vermont's food security, our rural economies, and our climate resiliency at risk. Our farmers aren't just growing food. They're stewarding the land that makes Vermont what it is. Farmers are the heart of our culture and community in Vermont, and we know we can do better to help them rebound when emergencies happen. Again, please include $20 million for farmers to recover after climate emergencies or extreme weather events in the FY26 budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Yasmin Zeisler, followed by Shannon Cardici on Zoom. Carchidi. Okay.
Thank you and good evening. I'm Yasmin Zeisler, Chair of the Board of Advance Vermont. I've worked for over 20 years in the Vermont State Colleges system as a student advisor and academic leader, and I currently teach at CCV. I'm here to speak to Advance Vermont's request for $350,000 in base funding to support My Future VT. It's the state's only free online resource for career and education exploration and planning. It's a vital resource for people of any age, as well as those who support them, like our career and school counselors, teachers, employers, and family members. It provides a one-stop solution, integrating Vermont's education programs, its funding sources, and career information, all in a user-friendly website designed to support Vermont's vulnerable and underserved communities. I'm also a resident of East Montpelier, and like my fellow Vermonters, this is the time of year when I read our school district's annual report. For me, one of the most important details is what the report says about the future plans of our community's high school graduates. We celebrate graduation rates and students who continue to 2- and 4-year colleges, but what's missing for me are students' plans for other important career pathways through apprenticeships, certificates, military service, and other employer-supported opportunities. What I want for all Vermonters is that they have information to explore careers in education of all kinds. Sustaining My Future VT is therefore not just a budgetary ask, it's a crucial investment for the people of Vermont and a public good. With legislative support since its launch in 2021, My Future VT has become a go-to resource for over 120,000 users. State support in the form of a base appropriation will ensure that it will remain a free, accessible statewide resource. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is Shannon Carchidi, if I get close, and Stephanie Carvey after that.
Hi, good evening. Thank you all for being here. My name is Shannon Carchidi. I'm the Executive Director with the North Central Vermont Recovery Center, also known as NCVRC. We're located in Morrisville and serve all of the Lamoille Valley. NCVRC has been a member of the Recovery Partners of Vermont since 2023. I'm here tonight to ask for your support of a base increase of $1.6 million for Vermont's local recovery centers in the Department of Health's budget. We are also asking for you to direct $500,000 in opioid abatement special funds to establish an oral health fund for people in early recovery. Recovery centers are a vital resource within our system of care and offer a safe, grounding space for individuals and families seeking support with substance use disorder. Our peer recovery coaching, volunteer programs, support groups, and health and wellness offerings are tailored to meet people where they are on their recovery journey. In 2024, in Morrisville alone, we recorded over 8,000 visits to our recovery center. For all of the reasons listed above and the variety of services I've shared, the need is apparent and our impact is powerful. Access to an oral health fund would greatly impact those we serve by increasing health awareness, building self-confidence, and empowering folks to rebuild their lives. Again, we please ask for your support of a base increase of 1.6 million for Vermont's local recovery centers in the Department of Health's budget, as well as 500,000 in opioid abatement special funds to establish an oral health fund for people in early recovery. We do appreciate your continued support and thank you for your time in hearing this testimony this evening. Thank you.
Next up is Stephanie Carvey, followed by Elias Burgess.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Stephanie Carvey. I am the co-executive director of the Rutland County Parent-Child Center. Our agency is one of 15 centers as part of the Parent-Child Center network, providing services for families specifically in Rutland County. I'm here today to request $500,000 from the Tobacco Settlement Fund for the base funding for our integrated grant, allowing parent-child centers to consistently and comprehensively provide tobacco cessation referrals and support for pregnant people and families with young children, as well as education and support to ensure infants and young children are not exposed to secondhand smoke. Working primarily in early education, I have a unique advantage of seeing families every day. Although our primary role is to support children reaching milestones and becoming kindergarten ready, we often are embedded into the personal lives at a deeper level. Working as part of a larger agency, we can support families with opportunities to reach new levels of success, in turn giving their children a stronger start in life. Success in quitting remaining smoke-free is more likely among people who have social support and encouragement. Embedded strategies for tobacco cessation into our work not only allows us to better assist individuals in reaching their quitting goals, but also promotes collaboration and sustainable healthy habits in life. This foundation is crucial to maintaining the momentum of positive lifestyles for future generations. Supporting families reaching their greatest potential is what we're here for, which is why we would like to secure $500,000 from the Tobacco Settlement Fund for the base funding in our integrated grant, allowing parent-child centers to consistently and comprehensively provide tobacco cessation, referrals, and support for pregnant people and families with young children, as well as education and support to ensure infants and young children are not exposed to secondhand smoke. Thank you for your time and consideration of our request.
Thank you.
Next up is Elias Burgess, followed by Miranda Dalton.
Hi, my name is Elias Burgess. I live in Brattleboro. I am the executive co-director of Turning Point of Windham County, a nonprofit recovery center, which is a member of the Recovery Partners of Vermont. I am asking you to support a base increase of $1.6 million for Vermont's local recovery centers in the Department of Health's budget. We're also asking you to direct $500,000 in opioid abatement special funds to establish an oral health fund for people in early recovery. Over the last few years, our community has faced unanticipated and unprecedented challenges. I am immensely proud of how the town I grew up in has organized to address the needs of the vulnerable population that is still growing within our community, and I'm equally proud of the role that our center continues to play in that effort. As a recovering alcoholic and addict, I know firsthand how essential our work can be to those who need it. We currently have only 5 recovery coaches providing peer support across 2 hospitals, 6 supportive housing programs and drop-in shelters, in the encampments of the unhoused, and at our center in Brattleboro. To maintain our current programs and expand our staff to meet the needs of our county, we need your support. For this reason, I am again asking you to support a base increase of $1.6 million for Vermont's local recovery centers in the Department of Health's budget, as well as $500,000 in opioid abatement special funds to establish an oral health fund for people in early recovery. I've run out of things to say, so I will surrender the rest of my time. Thank you so much for hearing me.
Thank you, Elias.
Okay, next up is Miranda Dalton, followed by Harmony DeVoe.
Hi, I'm Miranda Dalton from Heinsberg. I am the Waitsfield Farmers Market Manager, a member of NOFA VT and the VT FMA. I'm requesting to speak on the $500,000 in base funding to strengthen Vermont farm viability and address food security by sustaining 2 proven programs, Crop Cash Plus and the Farm Share program. As a market manager, my job is to provide a diversity of food options for our community while maintaining a healthy variety of vendors. We limit our field to only 3 vendors of one type. This means that we are limited to accepting 3 vegetable farmers and 3 fruit farmers. In the normal crop cash funding cycle, it only allows 6 small Vermont-based businesses to support our crop cash using community members. During the 2023 test year of Crop Cash Plus, this allowed the SNAP and EBT recipients to access things like meat, eggs, dairy, as well as local fresh baked bread, value-added agriculture food products, and forestry products like maple syrup. Vendors accepting this new Crop Cash Plus rose from 6 to 20. In tandem, we saw universal school lunches and PEBT cards in 2023. This allowed community members of all socioeconomic statuses to access this program and see how the same dollar that feeds the family funds the farmer, eliminating the stigma behind accessing food security benefits. In 2024, several families came back realizing they qualified for SNAP benefits and continued to use the program. We saw an increase in SNAP utilization of 341% comparing 2022 to 2024. We often think of Waitsfield as an affluent community, but many families struggle with food insecurity, and some redemptions come from vendors themselves. Please consider the economic impact programs like Crop Cash Plus and Farm Share have on both the family and the farmer. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Harmony. And I think Andrea is not here. So after that would be Ward Nile, who I believe is here. Okay. Great. So Harmony's next. Okay.
Hello, my name is Harmony Baldivo. I live in Warren and I am the council chair of the Vermont State Youth Council. I ask that funding for the Vermont State Youth Council please be continued. The State Youth Council was formed in 2022 with the purpose of providing young Vermonters an official means of providing advice on policies that impact young persons in Vermont. This was to ensure Vermont's children and young people achieve their potential and that Vermont has open, effective, and inclusive government. The council is currently composed of 26 youth. The council consists of the following 5 committees, each tasked with providing recommendations that apply to their topics: youth voice, education, equity and anti-racism, climate change, and youth mental health. Each committee has a chair who are also members of the executive committee, which creates agendas and decides priorities for the council. Since the council has been formed, we have written numerous bylaws to outline how the State Youth Council should work. We have also presented recommendations to the General Assembly and the Governor. We've shared knowledge and learned from multiple legislators during our Zoom meetings. We've also hosted one public hearing to better understand what topics Vermonters are wanting legislation to address. Additionally, we have sent out a survey to Vermont students so the council can aim to represent all Vermont students' opinions, not just those of our members. We also plan on providing more testimony on bills we agree and disagree with. The State Youth Council is important for the state of Vermont. When working in a system when our adults are given the most power, it is important that youth have the opportunity to have their opinions taken into account when legislative decisions are being made that affect youth's lives. Youth make up approximately 24% of Vermont's population. If they weren't rightfully represented in the legislature through the State Youth Council, this would mean a large number of Vermonters affected by legislators' decisions wouldn't have a say in it. I ask you to continue funding for the Vermont State Youth Council in order to allow Vermont youth to work with legislators to advance the state of Vermont. Thank you.
Thank you, Harmony.
Thank you. And next is Ward Nile.
Andrew, this is that's the written testimony
Okay.
that I emailed you all.
Okay, thank you.
It's been a while since I've been at the State House. It looks really good. I don't know. It really looks nice. I haven't been involved with Alzheimer's that long. Not me personally, but my wife. I brought my sister, my wife, my friend Dan here with me. I appreciate that you gave me the chance to testify and to share my testimony with you. And that's important to me. The reason I'm really here is to give you an opportunity to ask questions from what I shared with you, assuming you've already read it. So, you know, I'm kind of trying to open the floor to you folks to answer any questions you might have. And I'm prepared to answer questions. Not like I didn't come here prepared to talk, but I didn't really know what to talk to you about without knowing what your questions are.
So it looks like your main concern is about adult daycare centers.
Yeah, that's the subject. And I covered a lot in there because I tried to explain what it's like, and what are the sports that are even there for people. I didn't get into specifics, and you've probably heard specifics from others here. But I tried to give you a perspective of what is happening to me with being involved with Alzheimer's. And, I can't tell you everything because it takes too long.
Right.
But I mean, I would have liked to have been here earlier, but lost keys, things like that caused us to come here a little late.
Well, we appreciate you coming, and we have your letter and your written testimony. We'll make sure everybody gets a chance to look at it.
And my intent, as I said, to come here was to answer any questions you have, or at least that you know
Yeah.
that you can ask questions.
Okay, well, you're the last person, right? But none of the other people that were on are gone, so
Okay.
if afterwards people want to speak, but we've been here for an hour and a half, I think some people need to get going, but
No
there might be some
problem.
questions kind of
Yeah,
offline afterwards.
That's what I'm here. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer questions. And, I've come here with my family to help if you have more questions. And, really, it's to support you because I understand.
Yeah, well, we've
complex. I heard a lot of this